On the 4th of May 1961, 13 people boarded two buses in Washington, D.C., headed for New Orleans, intending to be there for the 17th of May. This date was chosen as it falls on the 7th anniversary of the Supreme Court's Brown v. Board of Education ruling. The Brown v. Board of Education ruling, in summary, was the Supreme Court's ruling that segregation of children in public school was unconstitutional. This was significant as it overruled the separate but equal principle that had been set almost 60 years beforehand. These freedom riders were launched by student activists from the Congress of Racial Equality, or CORE. They were travelling to challenge segregation on buses, confident that people would rather use violence than allow them to take a seat on the bus. This would pressure the government to enforce the Boynton decision, which would, in turn, ban all forms of segregation in public transport. The freedom riders first encountered violence on the 12th of May while travelling through South Carolina. 3 members of the freedom riders were attacked and beaten after trying to enter a whites-only restroom. This incident was heavily covered by the media, and in the following days, Martin Luther King met the freedom riders for dinner while travelling through Atlanta. It was in this meeting that King warned, "You will never make it through Alabama." Foreshadowed by the words of Martin Luther King, the freedom riders again encountered severe violence in Alabama. The freedom riders were greeted by a violent mob of over 100 upon arriving in Anniston, Alabama. They had their tires slashed and one of the buses was firebombed, forcing the riders inside out into the mob where they were brutally beaten. The second mob was later attacked in Birmingham, Alabama, where all the members were again beaten and nearly killed. In both cases, law authorities were suspiciously late responding to the scenes and didn't do much to prevent the attacks. It is thought that this may have been premeditated by the authorities to allow the mob to attack without fear of arrest. The extreme violence that the freedom riders encountered in Alabama made national news coverage. Despite this, James Farmer of CORE decided to end the campaign due to fear of further violence against the riders. This marked the end of the first freedom ride. However, not everyone was happy with this decision to end the rides. Student activist Diane Nash argued with Farmer, "We can't let them stop us with violence. If we do, the movement is dead." The Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee of Nashville decided to send a second group of 10 freedom riders to Birmingham. SNCC mentors were wary of this decision, including King, who declined to join this freedom ride. James Farmer called the trip suicide. Despite this, the group travelled from Nashville to Birmingham, beginning on the 17th of May, where they were arrested for defying segregation laws and again beaten. The freedom rides continued on still after the first 2 attempts. On May 29, 1961, U.S. Attorney General Robert F. Kennedy ordered the Interstate Commerce Commission to enforce strict guidelines banning segregation in interstate travel. Even after this order was made, freedom riders still continued travelling south by public transport until this order was enforced on November 1st of that year. In total, 436 riders took part in more than 60 freedom rides.